Elizabeth Sinclair had always moved at a rapid pace. As the founder of a successful technology company, she kept her life tightly scheduled. From early morning strategy meetings to late-night brainstorming sessions, she wore tailored suits that told the world she was in control. She spoke with confidence, and people listened. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. That night, Elizabeth was driving home from a charity gala. The roads were slick with rain, and her luxury sedan cut through the darkness. She replayed the summit's highlights in her mind, the applause when she spoke about innovation, cameras flashing as she accepted the award. A sense of triumph warmed her. She thought of celebrating with a cup of tea at home, and that fleeting moment of peace, her life slipped away. A sudden skid on the wet pavement sent her car spinning. She felt the world tilt. Glass shattered, metal groaned, and powerful lights blinded her. Then darkness swallowed her. The crash was severe, and the car came to rest against a guardrail. The night swallowed the aftermath. Paramedics arrived quickly. Rain poured onto the scene as they worked to free her from the wreckage. A helmeted firefighter cut through the metal to reach her. She lay motionless, her pulse weak. A doctor at the scene placed her on a stretcher and rushed her to the hospital. Time blurred as engines roared and sirens wailed. At City General Hospital, the emergency team fought to save her life. Tests revealed serious head trauma. Brain scans showed swelling, and experts warned her family that she might not wake again. Despite the machines that hovered around her bed, her chance of recovery seemed slim. The monitors beeped steadily, and the room felt cold. Her family gathered in a quiet corridor. Her younger brother stared at the floor. Her parents held hands, but did not speak. They expected the worst. Elizabeth had pushed them aside for so long, and now she lay trapped in a silent world. They felt guilt they could not explain. Meanwhile, Dr. Aaron Patel was finishing his shift in the neurology ward. He was a young doctor with kind eyes and steady hands. He believed in miracles and small victories. When he heard about Elizabeth Sinclair's condition, he felt a tug in his heart. He knew she was important, but more than that, he saw her as a human being in need. The lead neurologist assigned Elizabeth's case to Dr. Patel. His mentor warned him that it was a lost cause, but Dr. Patel's resolve only grew stronger. He began visiting her each day. He spoke softly, calling her by name. He played soft music, her favorite piano pieces, through headphones, placed gently over her ears. Patel recorded her vital signs in brain activity. Most days brought no change. Machines showed flat lines or tiny spikes, and the nurses adjusted her for drips with practiced routine. Yet Patel watched closely. He noted the time of day, the weather outside, the way light fell across her face. He believed those details mattered. Weeks turned into months. Elizabeth's company continued without her. Her trusted executives took over her role, making decisions she once would have overseen. News outlets speculated about a power struggle. Her board met in gleaming boardrooms, debating her fate. Investors wondered if the empire would crumble. But inside her hospital room, time moved differently. On a quiet afternoon, Dr. Patel entered with new hope. He had reviewed her scans and spotted a tiny flicker of activity deep in her brain. He almost missed it the first time, but the meticulous notes he kept revealed a pattern. He called the lead neurologist, who agreed they should keep her under close observation. A spark of optimism glowed as spring turned to summer. Patel found that Elizabeth's heart rate rose when he spoke her favorite words: care, hope, future. He adjusted her medication carefully, confident that the swelling would ease. Each day he stayed by her side a little longer, reading from her favorite books. He described the world outside, the green in the garden, the laughter of children in the courtyard, the scent of rain on hot pavement. Her family visited less often. They struggled with guilt and fear. Some joked about canceling her charity gala next year. Others whispered about legal arrangements. They could not face the weight of hope and disappointment. But Dr. Patel stayed. He sat beside her bed, sometimes silent, sometimes talking, always present. One morning, as the sun rose behind the hospital windows, Dr. Patel noticed her eyelids flutter. He watched, breath held as her brow creased. He called the nurse quietly and pointed. They watched together as Elizabeth's fingers twitched. Her breathing shifted. Machines beeped faster. Her body stirred like a flower waking to dawn. Moments later, Elizabeth opened her eyes. Confusion clouded her gaze. The room felt unfamiliar. Beeping monitors surrounded her like a cage. But the gentle voice she heard was familiar. Dr. Patel knelt at her side, relief shining in his eyes. He spoke softly. "Welcome back, Elizabeth. Take your time." She blinked, and the world began to make sense once more. In that instant, the silent years dissolved. The tireless nights, the steady care, the small notes he kept all led to this moment. Elizabeth, the strong and fearless leader, found herself weak and afraid. She held Dr. Patel's hand and he squeezed it gently. A bond formed between patient and healer, a bond neither expected but both needed. They faced an uncertain road ahead, but they would walk it together. ChatGPT said. Elizabeth lay still on the crisp white sheets, blinking against the unfamiliar light. The sterile smell of the hospital room surrounded her. She felt her body heavy, as if she had slept a lifetime. Fear and wonder mixed in her chest. She stared at the ceiling, trying to remember where she was. Then the sound of soft footsteps. Dr. Aaron Patel entered, carrying a clipboard. His face lit up when he saw her open eyes. He set the clipboard aside and moved closer, careful not to startle her. "Good morning, Elizabeth," he said in a calm voice. "How do you feel?" Her throat was dry, and her mouth ached when she tried to speak. She croaked, "Where am I?" He offered her a small cup of water, and she sipped, grateful for the cool relief. "You're at Riverside Rehabilitation Center," he explained. "You've been resting here since yesterday. You're safe." He described how she had awakened after years in a coma. Elizabeth's mind swirled. Years. She had been gone for years. She looked at her own hand, so pale and thin. "Is this really me?" She whispered. Aaron nodded gently. "It's you. We'll help you. You have time." His steady presence eased her panic a little. Over the next hours, Aaron guided her through simple tests. He held her hand as she tried to lift her arm. At first, she could not move it. He counted softly, 1, 2. Try again. With effort, her arm lifted a few inches. She smiled, a small triumph. Aaron praised her, and she felt warmth blossom inside. This was her first victory. Family and friends arrived in shifts. Her brother stood at the door one afternoon, uncertainty in his eyes. He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. He said little, tears shining. Elizabeth realized how distant they had become. She tried to speak, but exhausted herself. He nodded, understanding she would need time. He gave her a small photo album. Inside were pictures of her empire, smiling investors, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, awards in glass cases. She traced the images with her finger, remembering the drive that had built her tech company. She missed her old life, but she also felt peace that it had carried on without her. News traveled fast. Rumors spread that the Comatose millionaire had awakened. Gossip columnists and bloggers speculated wildly. Paparazzi gathered outside the rehab center entrance. Bright camera flashes cut through the evening gloom whenever someone entered the building. Elizabeth heard the whispers in the hallways. She felt exposed, vulnerable. She did not want her private moments displayed in tabloids. Discomfort. He arranged for stricter visiting hours and spoke with the center's administrators, insisting they protect her privacy. He moved her room to a quieter wing, away from the main entrance. He brought in soft curtains and flowers too. Make it feel more like home. He unlocked windows so she could feel fresh air on her skin. Elizabeth watched the breeze ripple the curtains and drew courage from his thoughtfulness. Her therapy sessions began in earnest. Physical therapists guided her through exercises to regain strength. Occupational therapists helped her relearn daily tasks, brushing her hair, feeding herself, buttoning a shirt. Each small success felt like climbing a mountain. Aaron attended many sessions, often sitting in the corner, ready to encourage her. He celebrated when she took her first unassisted steps with a walker. She laughed when she wobbled and nearly fell. He caught her arm just in time. She saw his relief and pride. She felt a rush of gratitude. Slowly, Elizabeth's speech improved. Her voice remained soft but gained confidence. She practiced reading aloud from a book of her favorite poems. Aaron listened, moved by her poetic way of describing light and shadows. She told him how the world felt new, like a painting she was seeing for the first time. He shared stories of his childhood, growing up in a small town and dreaming of medicine. They discovered small connections, favorite childhood games, shared love of rainy days. Their bond grew beyond doctor and patient. One afternoon, Elizabeth asked Aaron to describe the offices of her company. He sketched a picture with words, the glass walls reflecting the skyline. The hum of servers in the data room, teams of engineers brainstorming in bright rooms. She closed her eyes and imagined it all. She felt a tug in her heart. She missed the rush of creating new products and solving difficult problems. She asked whether the company was stable. He spoke honestly. The board had managed well, but they missed her leadership. He promised to help her get back. The legal team arrived next. Suited lawyers presented papers for her to sign. They talked about wills, shares, and power of attorney. Elizabeth stared at the fine print, her head spinning. Aaron sat nearby, holding her water cup. He waited until she had the facts. She decided to trust her own judgment. She insisted on reviewing each document carefully, asking questions. Aaron helped her stay calm, translating legal jargon into plain language. She felt empowered. She would not be a passive actress in her own life. Late one evening, Aaron found Elizabeth in the garden courtyard. The moon shone above, and the air smelled of jasmine. She sat on a bench, hugging her knees. He sat beside her. Neither spoke for a while. Then she said, "Thank you." Her voice was soft but sincere. "For everything. You could have let me be just another name on a chart. But you chose to care." He shrugged modestly. "I saw a person who deserved a chance." She studied his face in the moonlight. New feeling warmed her, a gentle spark that went beyond gratitude. As days passed, Elizabeth grew stronger. She left the rehab center in a wheelchair, ready to return home. Aaron arranged her transfer. The day felt bright and terrifying. She looked at her reflection in the car window. She saw rings under her eyes, but also determination. Aaron helped her into the back seat, then climbed in beside her. He held her hand as they drove. She squeezed it. He understood she was not alone. Back at her mansion, the world looked different. Dust lay on the furniture. Portraits of past triumphs lined the walls, reminding her of what she had lost and what she could rebuild. She wheeled herself through the hallways, memory flooding back. She paused by a tall window, watching the garden she once designed. Flowers bloomed in bright colors. She felt hope. Aaron helped her inside where a physical therapist waited. Her days would be filled with training, meetings, family visits, and legal matters. It would be a long road. That night, Elizabeth sat by her bedroom window. He held a cup of tea, steam rising gently. Aaron stood by the door, ready to check on the IV line and offer any support. She looked at him and spoke from her heart. "I know this is not how I planned my life to go, but if not for you, I might still be lost." She paused. "I don't know what the future holds, but I want you in it." He swallowed, surprised. He crossed to her side and gently took her hand. "I'll be here," he said. Every step of the way, in the quiet of the night, they sat together. Two people from different worlds, bound by an unexpected journey. Elizabeth, the millionaire who had conquered business, and Aaron, the doctor who had conquered doubt. Their days of recovery had only just begun. Yet in those moments they shared something real: trust, respect, and the first stirrings of something tender. The path ahead would test them both, but they would face it together. In that promise, they found comfort and courage to embrace the days to come. Elizabeth felt a strange mix of excitement and fear as she settled back into her life. Each morning she practiced walking a little farther with her cane before Aaron arrived. He greeted her with a smile, his presence steady and calm. She noticed The sunlight in his eyes when he saw her progress, it made her heart feel lighter. One day, while she practiced standing unassisted, her balance wavered. She reached out, unsure if she would catch herself. Aaron was there in an instant, guiding her arm and steadying her shoulder. She placed her hand on his forearm and felt the warmth of his skin. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away quickly. He said softly, "You are doing well. Soon you'll be walking on your own." His voice was gentle, but she heard something deeper, a kindness that filled her with hope. After therapy, Aaron would often show her small updates on her company's progress. He brought printed reports and photos of a new campus building rising downtown. She saw how her vision was in motion, even during her absence. She felt pride and relief that her dream was alive. She asked questions about her leadership team. He answered honestly, naming her most loyal allies and the new challenges they faced. She realized the world she once knew had changed, but her place in it remained. As days turned into weeks, she and Aaron found moments away from medical routines. She invited him to the garden behind her mansion during a lunch break. He sat at a wrought iron table beneath a flowering tree. Elizabeth brought sandwiches and lemonade. They ate quietly at first, enjoying the sun on their shoulders. Then she asked about his life outside the hospital. He spoke of weekends hiking in nearby hills, of reading crime novels late at night, and of learning yoga to manage stress. She laughed at the idea of him bending into strange poses, arms and legs twisting. He laughed too, the sound warm and genuine. She shared tales of her own past adventures. She told him about the first prototype she ever built in a makeshift garage, how she slept on the cold concrete floor to guard her invention from thieves. He listened, eyes wide as if each story painted a vivid picture he could almost step into. She saw admiration in his gaze, not for her wealth, but for her courage and grit. It made her feel seen in a way she had not before. Their friendship deepened naturally. Elizabeth found herself texting Aaron to ask how he was, not just about her recovery. She learned he had an elderly aunt living alone, and she offered to arrange grocery deliveries. He thanked her, surprised by her thoughtfulness. She realized how much it pleased her to help someone else for a change. Money could buy many things, but genuine caring and mutual support felt priceless. Back at work, Elizabeth had to face board meetings again. She stood tall in the glass conference room as her executives presented financial updates. Stock prices had dipped slightly after news of her coma, but they were recovering. She voiced her clear plans for growth, outlining new products and marketing strategies. She felt the old thrill of leadership flutter. When the meeting ended, colleagues applauded, relief and respect shining in their eyes. It reminded her of why she had built the company in the first place. Aaron was there after each big meeting, congratulated her and caught her arm to hold, steady as she shook off nerves. He knew how much each success mattered. One afternoon, as twilight painted the sky pink, he surprised her by drawing her bath. She found the tub filled with warm water and rose petals. She smiled in disbelief. He handed her a glass of juice and said, "You deserve to relax." In that moment, she saw him not just as her doctor, but as someone who noticed every detail. Of what made her happy, her family began to change again. Her parents visited more often, humbled by her strength. Her brother confessed that he regretted giving up on her too soon. She forgave them, knowing that their fear had made them distant. But she also realized that not everyone belonged in her life. Some old contacts tried to exploit her vulnerability, seeking favors or investments. She shut that door firmly and quietly, relying on Aaron's steady counsel. He reminded her that true friends stood by you through hardship, and false ones slipped away at the first sign of struggle. One evening, after a long therapy session, Aaron offered to drive her home. The drive was peaceful, the streets lit by soft lamps. Elizabeth felt tired but content. She shut her eyes for a moment and felt his hand on the small of her back as he helped her from the car. She caught his arm to steady herself and their eyes met. The world felt still. A silent promise passed between them. She leaned in and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, a tender thank you for being her rock. His breath caught and he smiled shyly. Inside, she found a letter on her desk. It was from his mentor at the hospital, praising his dedication and urging him to pursue advanced training abroad. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. She read it twice, imagining him in a new city, in a new hospital. She felt a pang of sadness. She cared for him deeply, and the thought of losing him felt painful. She knew she had to be honest. That night, she invited him for dinner in her library. The room glowed with warm light, shelves lined with books from floor to ceiling. A simple pasta she remembered he liked. Over dinner, she told him about the letter. His face darkened with conflict. He said it was a chance to grow, to learn new techniques that could help many patients. She nodded, understanding the weight of his dream. Then she took his hand across the table. "I want you to go," she whispered, "but I also want you. In my life, if you choose to stay, it won't be as my patient, but as someone I love." He looked at her, the candlelight dancing in his eyes. He saw determination and warmth in her gaze. He realized how much she had changed him. He took a deep breath. "I came here to heal you," he said softly, "but you have healed something in me too." He squeezed her hand. "I don't want to leave you now." Relief flooded her. Smiled, tears glinting. They finished dinner in comfortable silence, savoring the moment. Outside, the night was calm, as if the world paused to let them find their truth. They walked to the window and watched the stars emerge. They stood close, shoulders touching, neither needing words. Their journey was far from over. Challenges. Would come business battles, medical uncertainties, societal judgment. But in that quiet hour, they discovered a new strength, love born from resilience and trust. And so, Elizabeth and Aaron embraced a new chapter together, two people drawn from different worlds, bound by an unlikely journey. Elizabeth, once lost in darkness, now walked toward the future with purpose and warmth in her heart. Aaron, the healer, who held hope in his hands, found his own heart opening in ways he never imagined. In the soft glow of the night they stood, ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand, their path illuminated by shared faith and a love that grew stronger with every step. ChatGPT said, Elizabeth's days became fuller as she stepped back into her life. Her mornings began with therapy and light exercise. In the afternoons, she held short meetings with her team or reviewed documents related to her company. Though she moved slowly and tired more icily than before, her mind was sharper than ever. She was determined to take full control again. Her mansion, once quiet and still, was now filled with gentle activity, voices of assistants, trainers, and old friends re-entering her life. But the person she looked forward to seeing the most each day was still Dr. Aaron Patel. Their bond had deepened over the weeks. They laughed more freely now. Sometimes they sat by the fireplace in the evening, sipping tea and talking about things that had nothing to do with recovery music, old memories, even silly jokes. Elizabeth found herself smiling more than she had in years. Aaron often stayed, late, not out of duty, but because he wanted to be near her. Still, the world outside was not silent. News reporters continued to talk about Elizabeth's miraculous return. Some called her brave and inspiring. Others raised questions. Who was this young doctor always by her side? Why was he at her house? So often, whispers turned into rumors. Tabloids wrote headlines about a secret romance between the millionaire and her doctor. Photos of them walking in the garden or sitting close during lunch were published without permission. Elizabeth tried to ignore the gossip, but it started affecting her business. Board members grew concerned. They worried that public focus was shifting from her leadership to her private life. One morning, during a video meeting with the board, one older member cleared his throat and said politely but firmly, "Elizabeth, with all due respect, the media is beginning to question your judgment. Your closeness with this young doctor, might it be misunderstood?" Elizabeth stared at the screen, silent for a moment. She took a deep breath and answered calmly, "Dr. Patel is not just a doctor. He is the reason I am here. He helped me regain my life. I trust him more than anyone else right now." The board was quiet. Some members nodded in understanding. Others did not look pleased. She knew the storm wasn't over. Later that evening, she shared what had happened with Aaron. He listened quietly, then sighed. I never wanted to make trouble for you. Maybe I should step back, let you breathe. But Elizabeth shook her head. Don't you dare, she whispered. You're not a problem. You're the reason I still have a voice. Still, the pressure built. Things became harder when an old friend of hers, Richard Langford, came to visit. Richard had once been a close business partner. He was tall, confident, and had a sharp way of speaking. He looked at Aaron with polite curiosity, then turned to Elizabeth and said, So, this is the young man everyone's talking about. Aaron smiled kindly and shook his hand, but Elizabeth could feel the tension in the room. Richard stayed for dinner and brought up old times, recalling past parties, important clients, and business deals. But he also made subtle jokes about Aaron's age and how quickly things had changed in Elizabeth's life. Elizabeth sensed something deeper in Richard's words, jealousy or perhaps a wish to reclaim his place beside her. When Richard left, he hugged her and whispered, Just remember who really belongs in your world. That night, Elizabeth stood at her window, thinking. Her life before the coma had been filled with power, success, and people who followed her every move. But few had truly cared for her well-being. She had friends who loved her when she was strong, but how many had visited when she lay in that hospital bed, quiet and still? Aaron had been there, every single day. As the days went on, her heart grew more sure. She cared for Aaron deeply, not just for what he had done for her, but for who he was, gentle, honest, and true. She wanted more than friendship, but she also feared what the world would say. She was older. She was powerful. People would not understand. One afternoon, they went for a short walk by the lake near her home. The trees swayed gently in the wind and birds chirped in the background. They sat on a wooden bench, and Elizabeth turned to him. Do you ever think about us? She asked softly. Aaron looked at her. Every day, he admitted. But I also think about how people would judge you for it. Might say I stayed close to you just for your name or money. She nodded, slowly, and they might say I lost control, that I let my heart lead me. He looked into her eyes. Do you believe them? She shook her head. No, I only believe in what I feel when I'm with you. Silence fell between them, warm and full of meaning. But peace was short-lived. Days later, Elizabeth received a legal notice. A group of investors was planning a motion to remove her from her role as head of the company, claiming her decision-making was emotionally influenced and unprofessional. They cited her health history and her personal relationship with Aaron as signs of instability. Elizabeth was shocked. She had worked so hard to return, to prove herself again. She held the letter tightly in her hands and called an emergency meeting. Aaron watched her prepare, calmly going over her arguments. She dressed in a sleek navy suit, tied her hair neatly, and stood with full strength in front of the board. She spoke firmly. You doubt me because I care about someone? Because I didn't come back cold and unfeeling. But I will not apologize for surviving. I will not step down because I am loved, or because I have the courage to love someone. Who stood by me when you all disappeared? The board was silent. Then one member, a quiet woman who had known Elizabeth for many years, stood up. I support her, she said. Her mind is sharp. Her passion is clear. She has returned stronger than ever. Slowly, others followed. The motion to remove her was withdrawn. That night, Aaron met her on the porch, holding a small box. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with a tiny charm in the shape of a star. You shine even when people try to cover your light, he said. She smiled, tears in her eyes. She wrapped her arms around him, no longer afraid. I'm not hiding. Any more, she whispered. Let them talk. Let the world watch. I only care about what's real. And so, their love stepped into the light. It's not loud or dramatic, but steady and true, like a flame that had burned quietly through darkness, and finally had room to glow. ChatGPT said, months passed and Elizabeth's life slowly returned to something close to normal, but not quite the same. She had changed. The experience of waking up after years in a coma, rebuilding her body, facing doubts from the world, and opening her heart to someone had made her stronger, gentler, and more understanding. Her days were still busy with work meetings, therapy sessions, and strategy discussions. But she made time for peace, for joy, and for the people who truly mattered. Aaron was now not only her closest companion but her partner. They spent quiet mornings sipping coffee on the terrace and long evenings walking hand in hand through the garden. Their relationship had grown from trust and care, built slowly with every moment they had shared through the hard times. They no longer cared what the newspaper said. The headlines had faded, and now all that remained was their story, real, steady, and honest. One chilly morning in early winter, Elizabeth received an invitation to speak at a global tech summit. It was a big deal, her first public speech since waking up. The world had waited to hear from her again. She sat with Aaron at the kitchen, tabled a letter in her hands, unsure if she should accept it. He looked at her with a soft smile. "You've built that world. You led it once and you still can. But what if I freeze?" she whispered. "What? What if I forget my words? What if they stare at me, remembering the woman in a coma and not the leader I used to be?" Aaron gently reached out and held her hand. "You don't need to be the same. Leader, be the new one, the one who fought her way back." That's the story they need to hear. Her heart filled with courage. She accepted the invitation. The next few weeks were full of preparation. She practiced her speech late into the night, sometimes asking Aaron to listen and give feedback. He always listened patiently. He encouraged her to speak from her heart, not from a script. "They want to hear your truth," he said. The day of the summit arrived. Elizabeth wore a simple yet elegant dress and stood behind the podium as cameras flashed. The hall was packed with people from all over the world. She looked out over the crowd, took a deep breath, and began. She spoke about the accident that changed her life, the months of silence, the slow process of healing. She talked about the fear of losing everything and the strength it took to rise again. And she spoke about love not as something romantic, but as something powerful. Sometimes, she said, you meet someone who doesn't look at your title, your wealth, or your past. They see your soul, and that is what saves you. Her speech received a standing ovation. Reporters didn't ask about gossip this time. Instead, they asked about her ideas, her future plans, her vision for technology, and the importance of compassion and leadership. Elizabeth had taken back her voice and her place in the world. After the summit, her company's value soared, gained new confidence. The board that once doubted her now celebrated her. But Elizabeth didn't let success blind her. Again, she worked fewer hours, focused more on people than profits, and spent more time with Aaron. One day, while cleaning out old drawers in her office, she found a journal she had kept before the accident. It was filled with to-do lists, business goals, and meeting notes, but not a single page about happiness. She paused, then picked up a pen and wrote, "Today I laughed. Today I loved. That is success." Elizabeth and Aaron began giving talks. Together at hospitals and rehab centers, they shared their journey not to show off, but to inspire others who felt hopeless. Patients smiled when they heard Elizabeth's story. Nurses cried quietly at the back of the room. One young girl with a brain injury said, "If she could come back, maybe I can too." Aaron decided not to take the overseas job offer. Instead, he joined a local clinic where he could treat patients with care and time, not pressure. He and Elizabeth built a small foundation to help families facing long-term illness. They called it The Light Within. One spring morning, Elizabeth woke up to the sound of birds outside. Aaron brought her breakfast in bed, her favorite tea and warm toast. She laughed and asked, "Is this a special day?" He smiled and said, "Every day with you is special. But yes, this one is more special than most." He took a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. "I didn't save your life," he said, "but I stayed beside you while you found it again. And I'd like to walk with you for the rest of it, if you'll have me." Tears filled her eyes. She whispered yes, without hesitation. Didn't plan a grand wedding. Instead, they had a small ceremony in the garden, under the tree where they had first eaten lunch together. Only close friends and family attended. Elizabeth wore a soft white dress, and Aaron wore a simple gray suit. The flowers bloomed all around them, and the sun lit their faces as they said their vows. Later, as they danced slowly under the evening sky, Elizabeth rested her head on Aaron's shoulder. "I never imagined my life would turn out like this," she said. "Neither did I," he replied, "but I wouldn't change a thing." The guests clapped as fireflies filled the air and soft music played. Everyone felt the magic of the moment. It wasn't just a celebration of love. It was a celebration of life, of second chances, of choosing hope, even when the world seemed dark. As the night came to an end, Elizabeth looked around. Her company was strong, her health was better, heart was full, and the man she once knew only as her doctor was now her partner in every sense of the word. She had once been known as the brilliant millionaire who built a tech empire. She was also known as the woman who faced death, healed with grace, and found love in the most unexpected place. And so, Elizabeth and Aaron's story continued not as a fairy tale, but as a true journey. A journey built on kindness, respect, and the quiet power of never giving up. Together, they stepped into each new day with strength, knowing that life doesn't always go as planned, but sometimes it turns out even more beautiful than you ever imagined.